there's massive opportunity for process reorganization. I mean, McKinsey is putting out, it seems like a report a day on AI. And, you know, the reason being is they see, massive technology spend there, but massive process reorganization.
Today on Adventures in Customer Land, Eric Karofsky, who is CEO of human experience firm Vector HX. This is our second official get together, but Eric and I have had a handful of conversations in between this time and last time, largely because it turns out there's just a lot of overlap between what Customer Land is all about, where we think that world is going, and what Eric and his company already do. So with that as a rambling introduction, Eric, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be on and appreciate you having me on again.
Sure. So just to set some context, because it's been a while, can you tell our listeners a little bit about Vector HX and what you're all about?
Yeah, so what if all of your apps were built on deep user insights that were intuitive and engaging in at every touch point? Um, and think about the difference between the Department of Motor Vehicles and Apple. And that
That's
what
not even a
that
fair comparison.
what that experiences look like. And that discrepancy that is really where we focus. We really focus deep in understanding what are the customer needs, and then develop experiences that meet those needs. And very often it's either an online experience, an app. More and more we're talking about agents and agentic AI, and things along those lines.
So the work you do is not so much theoretical, it's strategic, but I take it that a lot of what you're doing is actually production work. It's the actual making of the things. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. We are making the sausage.
You're making the sausage. So you touched on something a moment ago. I'm not sure if that was inadvertent or intentional, but um, agentic AI and the fact that it is, um, I don't know, in business, every moment has its term du jour. And I think agentic AI is this moment's term. It's just what everybody's talking about. And I don't want to get too far ahead of us of this conversation because I think there's a lot of kind of bridge building to be done between where we are right now, what you and your team are doing in the here and now, and what agentic AI really is. And there's a pretty big gap, knowledge gap, understanding gap, and maybe even like production gap in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, the call for agentic AI is coming from the CEOs of, large companies, and the small ones that understand anything about AI are calling for it. And, they say they want agentic AI. I think most of them don't really know what the term means. How would they distinguish between agentic AI versus agents, versus just a workflow? So there's a lot of education needed out there. There's a lot of discussion, and these mandates coming on from high, and there's very little actual building of this stuff. And whatever is being built, really has yet to be adopted.
Can you walk us through, because you mentioned a couple of different variations on the big thematic idea here. Agents, workflows, agentic AI. You're the person who works in those realms, this big realm. Would you mind just for a moment defining those for
Yeah.
listeners?
Yeah, so you can kind of think about an agent as, a nice helpful assistant. They follow instructions, they complete defined tasks, and hand the results back. They're kind of like the doers, and they reduce manual effort. So things like generating blog articles, marketing copy, automating expense reporting and compliance, things along those lines. Um, on the other hand, there's the agentic side. And, again, that's where all of the buzz is right now. And that's much more of a collaborator, maybe with initiative. Um, and what they're doing is they're executing tasks, but there's some thinking behind it. They can reason behind, what needs to be done in what order and why. So, there's a lot of discussion about different types of agentic apps that can be built. A lot of different use cases out there, but again, I see very few actually doing it with success.
Yeah, at the moment, the conversations that I'm having with people who bring up the term, it's uh, it it's spoken of in terms of look at the age we're about to enter. Look how good life is going to be when I can ask my agent to do this thing and it'll go execute and bring these things back, which is pretty cool. Seems like just a bit of an extension from where we are right now, but there is that kind of promised interactivity with other agents to bring back what would be more complex solutions. And frankly, I don't remember, Eric, if it was you and me that had this conversation because it's happened so many times. But one of the things that I find missing out of those conversations is the, what's the right word here? The diminution of trust, because we're trusting our one agent to do our one thing, but it's now interacting with other agents to accomplish multiple things that may just amount to one giant complex task. But in so doing, we have commissioned our agent, given it our own agency and a certain amount of trust that went along with that. And that agent is now giving away that trust to whomever it's interacting with. And it seems to me like the people who are developing these great technologies have only taken that idea of trust to the first step. We're just learning how to trust AI that we can see and feel, so to speak. What happens when that agency is then given out to the next, you know, exponential permutation of agents who are going to work on things? What happens then?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a long way to go, because that trust issue. I mean, even with the AI that we have now, we've all experienced, whether hallucinations, and getting inaccurate information, and so we've experienced that as individuals as we use ChatGPT and Claude and others, but in the corporate environment, it's a lot worse, because then you're kind of betting your job on some of these recommendations and insights that are coming from these systems that you may not understand how they work, and they may be wrong. So, if the large corporations aren't getting it right, how is that going to trickle? How soon will that trickle down to us? Because doing creating these agentic apps, as you said, there's just so much trust involved. They're managing so much information, and there are so many edge cases, that it seems hard to figure out, you know, how to do that. So, like one of the, an agentic app like for travel could be, reschedule any meetings that overlap with my son's volleyball games, or book a hotel if I have more than two meetings uh, a week in my next trip. And the agent can go ahead and look at the schedule, check all of your rules, book the hotels, leverage your credit cards, all within certain guardrails. But to do that, it requires a massive amount of information, a massive amount of trust, a lot of connections. So it's hard to do this.
Yeah, I think it's, and I was talking to somebody who runs a division of a company that builds these agents early stage. And it's really quite easy apparently to develop an agent that is a single or maybe, single digit number of tasks it has to perform and interact with. But you get into a more complex situation, and the decisioning technology it seems like, has yet to catch up. But also, you lose the ability to really track and understand the veracity and integrity of those other agents really quickly. Like
Yeah,
you're out in no man's land in a hurry.
absolutely. And especially if you think about like what's the future look like. I have my personal agent, and the brand that I'm working with has their sets of agents, and the agents are talking to each other, which is kind of weird. And making decisions on our behalf. And then, that requires an awful lot of programming. And I'm not talking about code, of just understanding what my desires are, understanding what the brand's desires are, and then to go ahead and create that handshake of a deal, whatever that deal might look like.
Right.
There's a lot in there.
So you and your team at Vector HX do a lot of work in the healthcare and pharma world. And, if you're going to pick out one realm where trust and data integrity or process integrity are vital, that would have to be right near the top of the list. Maybe that and financial services, but healthcare, you know, literally your life depends on the integrity of these processes. And I'm really interested as a person who runs a company that designs processes within that highly regulated and world of healthcare. Like, okay, it's one thing for Mike Giambattista, who needs to have his agent go order a pizza and then coordinate that with the ordering the beer at the 7-Eleven. I don't order that way, but those are simple steps. Entirely different idea if your agent is running behind the firewall, so to speak, performing complex tasks in a regulated environment like that. Like, there have to be some, and I'm hoping you're working on it or somebody is, there has to be some guardrails that can be put in place so that you can trust the entire chain of interactions there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be a huge challenge. And when you're talking about healthcare and financial services and having these agentic apps doing things, I think we're a long way away from that. It's something that is, I would bet, if anything, is the future, and there seems to be a lot of discussion and planning and talking about it. But doing anything meaningful, I think, is still a bit away, and that's where people's imaginations, the capability is there, but maybe the ability is not there just yet,
Right.
or the desires and the willingness to accept that risk.
Yeah, right now it's just a really neat thing that could be, but
Right.
but the realities behind it are fraught with all kinds of security safety issues. So when you're talking to your clients, potential clients, about agentic AI, or even about your kind of non-agentic uh, projects, do you find that leadership is aware of some of these hurdles, pitfalls, problems, and potential risks, or is it kind of like they have to be enlightened as to? You can optimize for NPS, and that's good. You can optimize for CSAT, also good. You can optimize for loyalty, and that's good too. But here's the thing. If you're not optimizing for total customer value, for total customer profitability, then you're just optimizing for output, not the bottom line. Here's the truth. If your strategy isn't building better customers, more frequent, more loyal, more deeply bonded, And it's not a strategy, it's a performance. At Customerland Studio, we help brands find the value, find the opportunities, the force multipliers hiding inside the customer relationship. And then we help them optimize for scale, for yield, for profit across the entire relationship. Because the other thing we've learned, the only strategy that actually matters is the one that makes your customers more profitable. Customerland Studio, to make better customers. Go to customerland.net and click on the studio.
I believe they need to be enlightened as to, they're they're setting these mandates that we need to be, we need to be leveraging AI in every single possible way, and they're setting these lofty goals, and then the people below them are setting their goals, based on that, and there's still a lot of discussion of saying, how do we use AI? Beyond using it to improve my email, and write a better sounding email, which certainly does have value, but it's a very small amount of value spread across a lot of different people
Right.
and interactions. So it's almost impossible to measure. Um, the real types of opportunities around AI is when you go, really vertical and redesign entire processes. And to do that, getting back to the CEO, you really need the CEO, or certainly C-level to be supporting it, because there's massive change that's needed. Processes change, and you know, all, all sorts of process changes is needed to go ahead and make that happen.
This is a conversation that I think you and I would do well to just spend the rest of this conversation on, and and maybe many future ones, because the idea that AI is coming for our world, is it a doom and gloom view, or is it, all roses out there? Depends on your perspective. But the honest truth is, well, a couple of factors. One, that you see report after report that says that enterprise level AI projects are either failing or they're not being adopted into their fullest capacity. And there's lots of reasons for that. I contend that a lot of that is cultural. A huge amount of it is because, hey, I got the thing to do the thing, but wait a second. If we want the thing to do all the things, it's an entire reworking, redrawing of how this company is set up, or at least that division. And I don't think I'm exaggerating there.
Oh no, I don't think so at all. Um, there's massive opportunity for process reorganization. I mean, McKinsey is putting out, it seems like, a report a day on AI, and the the reason being is they see massive technology spend there, but massive process reorganization. And how do they go ahead and help the C level go ahead and recreate these organizations? And it's just a tremendous opportunity for a company like a McKinsey, and that's why they're all over it.
Yeah. On the one hand, you see that AI is coming for all of the consulting and advisory jobs. I'm not sure that's true. If you get this, there's huge opportunity to advise companies on how they're going to have to fully rewire their organization.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are some areas that where AI really is, taking off. And there's a project that I'm working on that's really cool, and it's definitely AI enabled. And this is with one of the large farmers, and it's around the literature review process. So at the start of the cycle to go ahead and develop a drug, 8 to 10 years, billions of dollars. Um, And the first step in that is doing a literature review. And that literature review consists of, once they have an idea of the drug that they want to develop, or the thing that they want to go ahead and try and cure, they'll go ahead and they'll work with a vendor to find all of the different academic publications that have been printed on this. And they'll come back depending on the type of disease with, 500 different, 1,000 different articles, peer-reviewed articles. So the first step is how do you whittle that down? And that's a lot of discussion and bringing that down to like maybe about 100 articles. The next step is this excruciating process of looking through these really deep academic papers and pulling out point by point and putting it in an Excel document of really long rows and really many columns, um, all of the data points. And they go through that for the entire 100 different um, articles that they're looking at. And then on the pharma side, they do that again because they want to double check the work because all of the follow on billions of dollars and years spent is based on this. So it's got to be right. So that process takes right now about 6 months and about $250,000. Um, and, for big pharma, they're doing a lot of these. It turns out to be a lot of money. So, we're in V1 right now of the product that we're putting together. And we've gotten it down to about 2 weeks, and it's going to be about $20,000 in soft costs.
Wow.
And those soft costs are, because they're not spending extra money. It's work that people are already doing, and the AI is doing all of the extraction. It's it's really cool, a really cool use case of AI that will really benefit everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great use case. That's actually pretty phenomenal. I'm the reason I'm quiet is because I'm thinking through all of the LLMs, chat GPTs and the like that I've been using over the past year and a half or so. And I'd call myself a heavy user. And you figure out the nuances and subtleties and hiccups of these things along the way, and you kind of mitigate for those in your processes and you know your workarounds. And for the most part, most of the tools that I use have gotten better over that period of time. They're learning and it's working, but they're still not perfect. And I daily uh, get some sort of prompt request that has to be completely kind of reworked because either I didn't articulate it correctly or clearly enough, or, and I'm capable of that because I am the human in the loop here, or the machine just came back with something that made no damn sense.
Yeah.
And it happens. It happens. I guess the one thing I would ask for in there is that it would come back with a little bit of humility. It never really does. I never get the
It's,
time to say I'm sorry.
and it's always encouraging you. Like, hey, that was a great question.
I
You
know. That was a terrible question. Yeah, I know. I know. I was talking with somebody recently who runs a division of a company that makes a lot of this technology. And we kind of took a forward view of, okay, take us 12 months in the future and what does your world look like? And he kind of put it back on me and said, well, you're a user of this technology. What does it look like for you? And I was like, well, I'm putting it back on you because I'm interviewing you. But he said, internally, he said, we're very clear on this idea that 12 months ago, we weren't using Chat GPT and our own internal LLMs the way we are now. They're we are rewiring processes. We're constantly thinking about how we can make what we do work better with these technologies. He said, to the point that my whole staff is very clear on the idea that next year, if you look out 12 months from now, if we're doing the same things the same way, we shouldn't even be working here because we've missed the point.
right.
And he didn't call it a mandate, but he said, let me just tell you, we're hyper aware of that idea that we're creating change, but we have to be prepared for the change we're creating.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that's actually kind of a nice way to think about it. Of next year we shouldn't be shouldn't have the same processes that we're doing this year. And you know, that might be the best type of KPI because, you know, all of the other KPIs are a bit unknown right now.
Right. Um, if I can, I want to go back into your world of pharma and healthcare, and we talked about that one use case, which I think is really cool. I mean, from 6 months down to 2 weeks or whatever that delta was, that's pretty phenomenal. Any other use cases that you can talk about where you and your team are designing or developing AI-based solutions for some of your clients?
Yeah, so I mean, another healthcare one for a different company is one of the big challenges is finding the right types of process documents. So in pharma or in all business, you have to go through processes. In pharma, you know, as you can imagine, those processes need to be really locked down. Everything from the way you manufacture a drug to the way you interact with the FDA and what your legal processes are. Um, so the problem is that all of these process documents are in tens of different databases. And those databases were developed at different times by different people in the organization, by different vendors with different mandates. And then, you know, there's been acquisitions. So there's a whole new slew of different types of databases. So each one has its own unique way of trying to find a document. And some of them, it's almost impossible. They have these cryptic names. So the only way you can find some of these documents is either if you know the document name or you know someone who knows the document name. Um, so one of the projects that we just completed is we work with the team to go ahead and they are scanning all of the different databases, coming up with metadata based on specific keywords that we generated, as well as what the computer generated, and it organized it. So now you can find it using natural language search or by keywords, you can find certain documents. But the real aha moment was, yeah, it's great that you can find the specific document that you're looking for, but if you're going through a process, you also want to find what's the parent document look like? What's the child document look like? Because you need to know all of that. So the AI is able to identify that, and that's something that was never able to do you could do beforehand. In addition, you can also find the exact same document in Chinese, if it exists, or in Spanish, because these are all global companies, and they have different manufacturing plants and different processes across the world. So, you know, being able to come up with the parent, child, and sister documents, you know, was just a big win.
Yeah. Think about the complexity that you just solved for, or your team. Give them full credit there.
Yeah, and a lot of other partners as well. You know, it was a big project, and it's still going on in different versions, but it's really made a big difference where they can find the documents that they need.
So that's I would guess that's a client project for a specific client. But sounds like, depending on who owns the IP for that one, that has utility across not only the rest of pharma, but just think about
Yeah,
the rest of
everywhere.
yeah, giant
Yeah,
giant
and that's not, I
organizations.
mean, that's not a unique problem or solution. As you stated, I think there's a lot of different companies developing custom solution, a lot of different vendors out there offering solutions along those lines.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so I'm gonna put you in the futurist seat, and let's see what you think your world is going to look like 12 months hence.
I think there's going to be a lot of time spent on process redesign. And you know, and that's certainly a core component of the work that we do in finding out what are the personas and what are the journeys that they go through and what are the jobs to be done. I think there's going to be a renewed attention to things like jobs to be done of what's happening today or yesterday versus what's happening tomorrow. Once these new systems are in place, I think a tremendous amount of time is going to be spent on that, and a lot of it, I think, is you know we're going to get it wrong. And that's both a little scary because of the power of these systems. But I think that it's going to be necessary to do and to constantly revise.
Yeah. Now I want to go down a whole nother rabbit hole on jobs to be done because and if you're not familiar with it, if you are familiar with it, you can skip right over this part of the podcast. But if you're not, there are theories and strategies that have been what would you call it, like 10, 15 years out in the wild there, driving the way a lot of more progressive companies kind of operate and decide on things. Really fascinating stuff. Well, Eric, it's a ton of fun jumping into the future with you, and look forward to the next time we can do it. In the meantime, just encourage everybody. Uh, Eric's company is called Vector HX, which I believe means human experience,
It
stands for.
does.
You'll see a link to that with this podcast. But as always, Eric, it's a ton of fun. Thanks for doing this.
Mike, thank you so much.